Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving deep into a really important topic. Something that's been making headlines across Africa.
Yeah.
We're talking about about gender-based violence on university campuses.
It's a huge issue, and it's so important that we really take the time to understand, the complexities.
Right, right. And that's what we're here to do today. We've got some really powerful firsthand accounts
Yeah, we do.
from student leaders in Kenya, Sierra Leone, South Africa, and Zambia.
By the end of this deep dive, you'll really get a sense of just how urgent this issue is.
I think, yeah, and what's so amazing is they're not just talking about the problems.
Right.
They're coming up with solutions.
They're proposing concrete actions, and they're
Mhm.
really pushing for change, It's inspiring to see.
Okay, so first stop,
Yeah.
Kenya. We're going to Kenya. We're meeting Anthony Manyara.
Yeah.
He's the president of the Kenya University Students Organization.
That's right.
And this guy's a real he's a real force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, he's not afraid to speak out. He's gone straight to the top. He's petitioned the Kenyan parliament.
Yeah, bold move, right?
Absolutely. And he's calling for some pretty major changes. He wants to see a huge increase in funding for support services for GBV survivors, but it goes beyond that. He wants to see a complete overhaul of how these investigations are handled.
Yeah, real accountability.
Real accountability for perpetrators.
And you know what I think is so smart about what he's doing? He cites these specific cases in his petition. He talks about Mercy Chirono, who sadly, passed away just days after arriving at Daystar University.
Tragic.
Yeah, and then there's Faith Adongo Owino. She was fatally stabbed at Plani University.
It's heartbreaking, but I think it's so smart that he's using these individual stories. Because sometimes statistics, they can be a little bit numbing, but when you hear these stories, when you put a face to the issue, it really hits home.
And I think that's a big part of Manyara's frustration, right? He's just like, it's too slow. The response is too slow. It's not adequate. I mean, he's even gone so far as to suggest a whole commission of inquiry.
Yeah, he want a deep dive.
Yeah, a deep dive into how these cases are handled.
And that could be, a commission could be really interesting. It could be a real game changer if it's done right. If it has the right people, the resources, the authority to actually make a difference.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. It's definitely have to keep an eye on. But one thing I did want to point out is, Manyara is not just focused on women. He mentions
Right.
an alarming rise in sodomy cases and really highlights the unique challenges that male victims face.
Yeah, it's so important that we remember that GBV isn't just a whimsical issue. Men are victims too. And often they face this incredible pressure to stay silent. Like it's somehow not okay for them to come forward.
Right, right. And Manyara is really stressing that, that silence and how damaging it is.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit. We're gonna head over to Sierra Leone now.
Okay.
And we're gonna meet Rebecca Sugep. She's the Deputy Secretary General of the National Union of Sierra Leone Students. And her focus is a little bit different. She's really interested in tackling this problem.
Yeah.
Within the university system itself.
Absolutely. And that's really key. We need both. We need that kind of legislative action, like what Manyara is doing. But universities also have to take responsibility for creating safe environments on their campuses.
She's calling out this hidden problem of sexual harassment, where people in positions of power
use their power.
Abuse their power for grades, for influence. And there's this lack of trust in the system. Victims are
afraid to speak out.
They're afraid to speak out. They don't think anything will happen.
And when you look at the way disciplinary actions are handled, a lot of times it's all very secretive. The outcomes of hearings, they're kept secret. And that really, I think, protects the perpetrator.
Yeah, it does. And she's really pushing for visibility when it comes to penalties. Real consequences that everyone knows about. She thinks that will be like a much more effective deterrent.
I mean, think about it. If you knew that being found guilty of sexual harassment, if you knew that would result in you being expelled and your name being published, that would make you think twice.
It would. Okay, our next stop on this deep dive, we're going to South Africa. And we're going to hear from Julia Mtsweni. She's the deputy president of the South African Students Congress.
Okay.
And she paints a pretty sobering picture.
It is sobering. South Africa's got this awful label,
Yeah.
the rape capital of the world, and it's a problem that's been around for a long time.
Right. Deeply rooted.
Deeply rooted. And unfortunately, universities aren't immune.
Yeah, she talks about all these student protests,
Yeah.
that have been erupting in response to GBV, and it's clear that students are fed up. They're fed up with the violence. They're fed up with the way that institutions are failing to address it.
And it really highlights this issue of institutional accountability. It goes beyond, individual perpetrators. What we're seeing here is a systemic failure, a failure to protect students, a failure to hold those in power accountable. And that's why we need a real top-down approach. We need universities to implement, real systemic change to address the root causes of this problem.
And what's interesting is she also brings up, male victims, but in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
She highlights the physical violence and bullying that they face, especially, in these hyper-masculine environments.
Well, you think about fraternities, sports teams, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And, we often overlook, I think, the societal pressures that prevent men from reporting abuse. There's that whole boys don't cry mentality. Yeah. And it's so damaging because it creates this environment where men they're expected to endure this violence without complaint. And that just perpetuates the cycle.
And Metswene, she's not just,
right,
pointing fingers. She's actually get some solutions. She's advocating for mandatory GBV workshops for all students.
Good idea.
Clear policies with serious consequences for perpetrators. Improved campus safety measures. And I think one of the most interesting things she brought up was training in bystander intervention.
Now that's where things get really interesting. Because we know from research that just awareness, just workshops alone, they rarely lead to lasting behavior change. But if you combine those workshops with practical skills, things like bystander intervention training, then you're actually equipping individuals to do something. When they witness potential, GBV situations, it shifts the responsibility from, just the victim to the entire community.
I like that. Yeah. It's a powerful shift. Instead of waiting for someone else to step in, you're empowering everyone to be part of the solution.
Exactly. And it creates this culture where everyone feels responsible for each other's safety. Now, I think it's time for us to move on to our final two student leaders. We're going to head over to Zambia and Zimbabwe and see what they're doing. These student leaders, they're really taking a multi-pronged approach to this whole issue of GBV.
Yeah. It's really impressive. And in Zambia, we've got Bridget Mililanduba.
Yeah.
She's doing amazing work.
Incredible work.
As a peer educator. And what really stands out to me about her approach is that she's tackling those really deep-rooted cultural and traditional beliefs.
Right.
That often,
fuel the cycle of GBV.
And she works with this organization called Shares, and they're literally going door to door.
Wow.
Reaching out to students, offering support.
It's so grassroots, right?
Yeah.
It's going right to the source.
It's amazing.
It's so necessary though, because we can't ignore the cultural context, right? That plays such a huge role in understanding why some victims, why they don't speak out, or why they don't seek help.
It's like this pressure to protect the family's reputation.
Absolutely, even if it means silencing victims.
And she shares this story about a student who was almost stabbed by her boyfriend.
Oh gosh.
But didn't report it.
It's heartbreaking.
I know.
But it's so real, right? And it shows you how this it just becomes normalized when it's all shrouded in secrecy and fear.
So Mililanduba's work is it's so vital.
Yeah, it is.
Because she's challenging those harmful beliefs, and she's creating a space
for dialogue.
Yeah.
Where people can actually, talk about this stuff openly.
Yeah. Okay, now we're going to head over to Zimbabwe.
Okay.
And we're going to meet Bridget Gwizere. Is the SRC president of Bindura University of Science Education. And she's really interesting because she's using technology to fight back against GBV. And get this, she's a survivor of online harassment herself.
Wow.
Yeah, she faced a ton of attacks when she was campaigning to be SRC president.
Oh, that's awful.
But she didn't back down.
Good for her.
She persevered, and she won the election, and now she's using her platform
Yeah.
to advocate for some really interesting solutions, like a dedicated GBV reporting app
Oh, that's smart.
and a 247 hotline for students.
Makes sense, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we're living in a digital age.
Right. Why not?
Why not use it
Absolutely.
for advantage, right?
And it can be, think about it, for students who are afraid to report something in person, having an app, having a hotline, it gives them a sense of control.
Right, right. And she's also pushing for these edutainment campaigns.
Oh, I love edutainment.
It's amazing, right? It's like
It's such a great way to engage young people. You combine education with entertainment, and you make learning about these complex issues so much more appealing, so much more accessible.
yeah. It's not about like
Lecturing.
lecturing, It's about like meeting them where they are
Exactly.
and using creative strategies to really get the message across. So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into all this incredible work
Yeah.
that these student leaders are doing.
It's inspiring, isn't it?
It is. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. What are some of the key takeaways? What really resonated with you?
You know, what strikes me is the sheer diversity of approaches that these leaders are taking. I mean, we've seen everything from legislative action to, grassroots organizing to technological innovation. And it just goes to show that there's no one-size-fits-all solution to GBV.
Right.
What works in Kenya might not work in South Africa.
Right.
It's about understanding the specific context and tailoring your approach accordingly.
It's about recognizing that ending GBV requires this, like multifaceted, approach. It's legal reforms, institutional changes, cultural shifts, individual actions.
Well, it's a collective effort.
It is.
And what's so inspiring is that these student leaders, they're not waiting around for someone else to solve this problem. They are stepping up, they are raising their voices, and they are demanding action.
Yeah.
And they're showing us that even small actions can have this ripple effect.
I think that's a great takeaway. Like, we don't have to be in some, position of power to make a difference.
Absolutely.
We can all contribute to creating, a safer and more equitable world, whether it's, through educating ourselves or challenging those harmful norms in our own circles or supporting organizations.
The ones that are out there.
Yeah, that are doing the work.
Doing the work.
And I think, one of the most important things we could do is believe and support survivors. Listen to their stories without judgment.
Validate their experiences.
Let them know they're not alone.
Yeah, we have to create a space where survivors feel safe and empowered to come forward. And remember, it is never the victim's fault.
Yes.
We have to shift the blame where it belongs to the perpetrator.
To the perpetrator.
And hold them accountable for their actions.
So much of this is about changing the narrative, right? And creating this culture of accountability and respect.
Absolutely. And that starts with each of us, It's about examining our own biases. It's about challenging those harmful stereotypes. And it's about speaking up for what's right.
And remember, even small actions
can make a difference.
You see something, you say something, you hear something.
Speak up.
You speak up.
It might feel like a drop in the ocean.
Yeah.
But collectively, those drops,
wave.
they can create a wave of change.
I love that.
Right.
So to our listeners, we hope that this deep dive has left you feeling, informed.
Empowered,
and ready to take action.
Absolutely.
Remember, we all have a role to play in ending GBV and creating a safer, more equitable world for absolutely everyone.
And if you or someone needs help, please don't hesitate to reach out. There are resources available, and you are not alone.
Together, we can make a difference. Wow. I mean, it's incredible to hear about all the work these student leaders are doing.
It is. It's really inspiring.
And the impact they're having. I mean, it's a real testament to the power of speaking up,
Absolutely.
and demanding change. And I think it highlights something really important, creating a world free from GBV. It's not something that's going to happen just because institutions change their policies, or it really requires all of us.
It does. It requires all of us to be involved, to examine our own attitudes, our own behaviors.
Yeah. And so as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, I want to shift gears just a little bit and think about our listener. They've heard these powerful stories. They're fired up. They want to help. But where do they start?
Right. What can they actually do?
What are some concrete actions?
Well, I think the first step is education. Take the time to really learn about the different forms of GBV, the warning signs, the resources that are available. There's so much information out there, and the more you understand the issue, the better equipped you'll be to actually address it.
Knowledge is power,
It
right?
really is.
And once you have that knowledge, don't be afraid to use it. Speak up when you hear those sexist jokes, or when you witness some harmful behavior. It might feel uncomfortable, it might feel awkward,
It might.
but those small acts of courage,
They can make a difference.
they can make a huge
They
difference.
can create a ripple effect.
And don't underestimate the power of supporting organizations. The organizations that are out there doing the work to end GBV. Whether it's, volunteering your time or donating to their cause or even just helping to spread awareness. I mean, every little bit
Every little bit helps.
helps. And I think one of the most important things we can do is to believe and support survivors,
Yeah.
to listen to their stories without judgment, to validate their experiences.
And to let them know that they're not alone.
We need to create a space where survivors feel safe and empowered
Safe and empowered to come forward.
to come forward. And remember, it's never the victim's fault.
Never. We need to shift the blame where it belongs, to the perpetrator.
Hold them accountable.
Hold them accountable for their actions.
Yeah. So much of this is about changing the narrative,
Yeah.
right? Creating a culture of accountability, a culture of respect. And it starts with each of us,
Yeah.
It starts with examining our own biases, challenging those harmful stereotypes, speaking up, for what's right.
And remember, even those small actions, they can make a difference. You see something, say something. You hear something, speak up. It might feel like you said, a drop in the ocean, but collectively, those drops, they create a wave.
They create a wave of change. So to our listener, we hope this deep dive has left you feeling informed, empowered, and ready to take action.
Because we all have a role to play in ending GBV. We all have a role to play in creating a safer, more equitable world for everyone.
And remember, if you or someone you know needs help, don't hesitate to reach out. There are resources available, and you're not alone.
We can make a difference. We can do this together.